My name's Joseph Hammond. I'm a professional artist, and in this video, I'm going to be drawing the figure. I'm going to be emphasizing movement, okay, movement within space and movement within the figure itself. Okay, so if you like this video, I'd appreciate if you could hit the like button and the subscribe button. It really helps me out a lot, and it makes it so I can make more of these videos. And thank you very much. Okay, I started with the hand. Okay, the reason why I started with the hand is it's the most difficult thing, I think, to draw within the figure. It, I want to do it now while I'm still fresh, right? I don't want to do it later on when I'm all burnt out on the piece and I really don't feel like doing it anymore. I don't want to tackle the hardest part then. I want to do the easier parts then. Okay, so I start with it now. Okay, another reason why I start with it now is I have to make a decision before I even start drawing on where my focal point is going to be. Every drawing that you do, you look at it and say, okay, where do I want the the people to look at? If you're drawing a face, obviously you want the eyes and the nose and the mouth. That's the area that you want here. But here I'm going to go with the hands and the side of the face. Okay, and that's my focal point. Okay, the way I create that focal point is through values and temperature. Okay, now values, what are values? Okay, values are you start with a black and you go to a white. You mix the two together and you get a middle gray. Anything on one side of that middle gray is going to be lighter. On the other side of that middle gray, it's going to be darker. That's called an artist's value scale. Okay, if you want to get a little better explanation and you want to see what it looks like, Google an artist's value scale, and you'll see it, and they'll give you a sample and everything. So that's what a value is. Okay, temperature. Okay, that's hot colors and warm colors. Warm colors come forward. Cooler colors go back in space. Okay, that's what the temperature I'll be using. Now I use right here, just to attract the attention of the viewer, I use the lightest light and the darkest dark here, right along the knuckles. Okay, and as you can see, a little bit on the hand fingers there, I've started using a very intense warm red. I think it's like a cadmium red. So let me go over the pencils that I used. The pencils I used were Carbo Othello pastel pencils. I used one Derwent pastel pencil. Okay, and at the very end, I'll use a little bit of the Conte Sketch White pencil. Okay, and the colors I used were black, white, gray, light gray, mulberry, that's the Derwent mulberry, and moss green, cadmium red, and ultramarine blue. I think it comes up to about 9 different colors, so it's for pastels, that's fairly limited in your a palette there. So as you can see, I used the really warm colors right here, and the most intense colors I used back in here. Now I'm smoothing it out. Do you see where I'm smoothing it out right now? I just used a paintbrush. Okay, now that is an old watercolor brush that I had laying around, and I use that as a blender. I also use a stomp, which is a paper, like a rolled paper type thing. I like the ones with both sides, 2 sides on them. And the reason why is I like to keep the dark values separated from the light values. You start, blending in an area, like let's say in the hair there, and it's, very black, right? And then I decide I'm going to blend in something on the face or something. And I get all that black pigment into the areas that I want to be white. And it starts to get kind of muddy. It's the same concept as when you're working with oil paints, that you keep 2 brushes, one for your warm colors and one for your cool colors. If you mix those two together, you start to get mud. So try to get the ones with the two sides. I think I bought the ones that I really like. I think I got those at Amazon. They were cheap, like $11 or something for a whole pack of them. And because you can kind of wipe them off a little bit and then it cleans them up. But after a while, you just pretty much have to throw them away. But did you see on the forearm there? I was drawing these little round circles. That is called ellipses. Okay. The reason why I drew ellipses there because that forearm is really foreshortened. Okay. It means it goes back into space steeply. And like right now, the hand is probably longer than the forearm. And, reality is that the forearm is much longer than the hand. But to create the illusion of foreshortening, okay, you start when you actually drew the piece. I draw the piece on a separate piece of paper, and then I transfer it over onto the final piece. Okay, you can see I do that on the last two videos I think I did. I show where I'm actually drawing it out and transferring it over. But what you do is you're drawing the outside edge, and then you come into the form and around that ellipse I made. Then you start another line on the forearm on the outside edge, then up and around the the ellipse I made, and the same thing with way back there by the elbow. Okay, what that does is tells you that you have form in front of form. Okay, and once you get that in, it creates the illusion of foreshortening. Your brain accepts the fact that, the hand is in front of the wrist, and the wrist is in front of the forearm, and the forearm is in front of the elbow. Okay, and then it looks like it's all right. If not, it looks like you have a really, really stumpy forearm. Okay, so remember that on foreshortening. So can you see here where it's already starting to work, where it's starting to give me a three-dimensional feel to it, where the hand is coming forward and the forearm is going back. Okay, so now we're starting to get depth within the painting. That's what we're trying to achieve here. Okay, now let me talk about the paper I used. Okay, this is a Sennelier pastel card. Okay, it's a sanded paper, and it's in a tan. And a sanded paper, if you touched it, it feels sort of like sandpaper. I think it's some kind of vegetable matter that they use, not sand. But it's gritty like sandpaper. If you rub your finger on it, it feels very, very rough. And the advantages to this is that it holds a lot of pigment. Okay, it's that roughness is called tooth. Okay, when you see something that says that your paper has a lot of tooth to it, it means it has a lot of texture. Okay, a smooth paper has less tooth. Okay, so it the advantages are you can get darks, the blacks you can get really black, and the colors are more intense. The disadvantages to it is that you do get a grainier look, and it takes longer because you're filling up more of the pigment that you have to put in there. It also I have a tendency with the tan here. I've had problems with it getting some holes, and I can't get rid of the holes. The only way I could get rid of them, I finally had to, go in with some oil paint. Now, usually with the grays, I've never had that problem. I work with the gray and the blue gray, the light gray and the blue gray, and I've never had any problems with it at all. But the tan here, this is the second time I've had problems with it. But overall, I really like the paper. I use this, and then sometimes I'll use the pastel matte. It's a Clairefontaine, I think. And, I'll interchange it. I'll use that kind sometimes, and I'll use this kind sometimes. This I like better for the skin. If I'm drawing a lot, face with a lot of, the hair I like the pastel matte, the Clairefontaine. Because it's hard to get like a single-stranded hair with this you're going to get more mass rather than single strands when you're drawing hair. So when I draw a lot of hair, I go with the pastel mat. So that's what, I wanted to talk about this paper here. Okay, now the technique I was using here is I start with the darkest dark, I go to my midtones, and then I go to my light, and if there is a highlight, then the highlight. In this case, on the neck here, there is no highlight. Then I go over the whole thing with my white pastel pencil. Then I blend it all back out with, in the first path I usually use the stomp, and I'll blend it out with that, and then I'll go over it again. Okay, now I'm going to show you guys later near the bottom of the piece, near her lower back. I'm going to be showing you how I go through the whole process. And so here I'm lightening things up. Now you're going to be doing this throughout the piece. See, I put in the background there, and that gives me the ability to see what values I need within the shape itself, within the figure. Because without that, I really don't know what the relationship between the values of the background and the values on the form is. So, I do that as I go down, and that helps me in deciding what values, I need to have out there. Okay, so I'm lightening and darkening. That's a nice thing about the pastels, is you can go over and lighten it back up. You can, if the area needs to be lighter, you can. A lot of the other mediums, it's harder to do, to change the values and all that. Once you get it there, it's more difficult to lighten it back up. Here, I have no problems in lightening it. Now, I'll probably never get it back to white, but you can lighten it up with no problem. And that's what I need to do here to create my form. Okay? Form is the ability to create an illusion of three-dimensionality on a two-dimensional surface. Okay, now we're trying to do that with movement within space. This is a little bit different, okay? I want the form to be roundness and volume within the figure itself. Okay, the example I give, in my other videos is the little ant that's crawling across a person's face, right? Here it's going to be on her body. The closer it gets to the light, the lighter the value becomes. As it goes away from the light, the darker the value gets. Okay, so it's crawling around like her shoulder there, shoulder blade, and then it goes up and around and down. As it goes down, it starts to get darker and darker. Then it comes back up where it's getting a little bit closer to the light, and then it gets lighter and lighter. See, same thing. That's what the whole thing is about. If you can feel that little ant going up and around her form, it makes it easier to feel like, you got this volume, this roundness, and things are coming out, things are going in on the body. And, that's what you constantly have to think about. Is it coming towards me, or is it going away from me? Okay? That's how you push and pull the figure. Okay? Now, you also heard me talk about creating movement within the figure itself. Okay? How do I do that, right? How do I create this body to look like it's moving? Obviously, it's a stagnant body. I mean, she's just not going to move. But the way you do it is by using diagonals. Okay, see how her arms are diagonals, and her head is tilted in a diagonal. Her body is actually kind of curved in a diagonal. All these diagonals tells my brain that she is going to move. Okay, think about the Leaning Tower of Pisa, right? If the building was straight up and down, you would be stagnant. You would not think that it's going to move. Okay, but the way it's leaning like that, I mean, I'm not going to go stand next to it because it's probably going to fall right over top of me when I'm there, right? My brain is telling me don't go close to that because it's leaning and it's going to fall. That's the same thing here. You know, our brains see diagonals and it perceives movement. I mean, artists have been using this for hundreds of years. You know, if you go back and look at a Renaissance battle scene, you know, like Leonardo drawing all these horses up in the air, they're all diagonals, you know, the arms are diagonals and spears are all on diagonals. That creates action and movement. You know, they use it in comic books, you know, the superheroes. They're all in diagonals. You know, you don't see one guy standing there, straight up and down and horizontal and vertical. You know, that would be a very boring comic book, right? So they use the same type of thing in there. Also, the body twists. Think about Michelangelo in the Sistine Chapel. You know, you look up there and you see all these bodies and they're twisted and, you know, turning. And the reason why he does that is that it creates the sense of animation versus, you know, stagnant body just standing up there. It makes it much more interesting and exciting and dynamic. So that's how you create movement within the figure itself. Okay, and you can use this in your own, your own work. It'll take it to another level. Okay. Okay. Now I'm trying to create volume. Okay, I need to make her to look like her chest cavity is a round shape, like a macaroni, right? We used to use, as a matter of fact, you can see the twists of the macaroni tube here. And the way I do that is you could use ellipses like I used earlier, and that's going to go around. But I'm going to use her ribs and the values to create a volume in those ribs on her side there on the right. Okay? Because inside of that cavity, she's got lungs, a heart, and livers and kidneys and all those things, and you have to be able to give it a sense of volume to create, to make it look, like it is going to be able to hold those things. Okay, and as you can see, I'm using the values here. It's darker, then it gets a little bit lighter and lighter. It's going to be lightest where there's sort of a highlight there, where on her ribs here. And then as it starts to turn away from me, the plane starts to turn away from me, it starts to get slightly darker and darker. And that causes it to turn. Now remember, to get a three-dimensional, feel to it, you have to believe it yourself. Okay? You have to believe that she's got a face on the other side of that head. You have to believe that there's a front to her body, And if you can't believe that, it's not going to show up in your drawing. The viewers aren't going to believe it either. Okay, so the way you want to maybe do it when you first start is in the drawing stage. When you're actually drawing it, box in like the head. The head is just not the side of a face. Box it in so that she's got a front on the box, the top on the box, a side over on the right hand side, the body the same way. You can either do like a macaroni type shape, or you can box it in and show that she's got the dimensions. What I draw is I draw the head, and then I draw the gesture line for the spine, and then I draw in sort of like it looks sort of like lungs for the ribs. Okay, and that rib shape is going to be where I have the body there, and then it's going to go down the spine, and then the lower back and the hip area. I'm going to draw another box, and it's going to be leaning forward. Okay, if you do that, or you can even box in the arms, it'll give you the sense that it's a three-dimensional object. Okay, and it may make it easier for you to understand how you create a three-dimensional object in a two-dimensional space. Okay, so that's what I was doing here. I'm trying to draw that big volume space that goes around the ribs there. Now, so I'm doing the same thing on the opposite side here. See the muscle that goes on the sides of her spine there. It goes up, and then that's where it's going to be light there, and then it starts to go back down, and then around her ribs, okay, on the other side there. And do you see now, do you get that sense of movement in space? You know, I want you to think of it as not only drawing this object on a flat piece of paper, but I want you to get the sense that you're sculpting it. You know, if you watch me drawing here, does it, you know, do you get the feel that I'm sculpting it rather than just drawing it? Am I just, you know, drawing it on a flat surface, or am I thinking that I'm carving it out? Okay? If you can think of it as sculpting the figure, that's why they call it sculptural. Yeah, I think it'll help you a lot in creating this sense of three dimensions, and not only that, form on the body. Now, earlier I mentioned the fact that I'm going to be drawing that lower body and a lower back there, and I'll go through the whole process. And you'll see the stages that I go through and how I create the illusion of skin, okay? Because you can see on the upper part of her body that, you know, I think it has the illusion of skin, right? I mean, you would look at it and say, okay, yeah, she has skin, rather than, you know, just muscles and bones that I still need to put the skin over the top of. Okay, so that's what I'm going to be doing there. Now, I mentioned about blending with your, you know, the stomp, the paintbrush, and your finger, right? Like I did just right there. I forgot to mention that try not to use your index finger. Use your middle finger, because this paper will wear the fingerprint off of your hand. And you know how you have to use your fingerprint to get in your iPad and all that. Your fingerprint won't grow back for about a week. So, you know, try to use your middle finger rather than your index finger. Okay? So, now remember I told you about I'm going to be going through all the thing here, where I start out with my darkest dark, okay? And then I'll go in with my middle tones, which is called, you know, some mother color, which as you can see, that pretty much the whole thing has got some part of that mulberry in it, right? Whether it's a light mulberry or a dark mulberry, it's got that mulberry on it. That's the mother color, okay? And that's what I'm putting in now. It's like my middle tone. And I'll go in and put in my lights on either side. Remember, on the left-hand side, it's going to be a muted down light, and on the right-hand side, it's going to be a more intense light. Okay, and then I'll be going over the whole thing with a white pastel pencil, and you'll see that in a moment. And I just wanted to show this to you because, you know, it probably is difficult to understand how I get that skin look, and that's what I'm doing here. And see how I'm using a stomp, okay, that paper blender. And as I start blending in the white here, you can see, does it look like to you that it forms skin? As I take away that white, is underneath that white is a layer of skin, okay? I know this sounds kind of weird and kind of creepy, but that's you know, that's the way I think of it, and I feel that way. And I think it's really the easiest way to get an overall conformity of the piece. Okay, it gives it a sense of being one piece and not a bunch of pieces together. Now, that was another thing I need to mention is always go over your edges. Okay, we're not staying within the line here. Okay, we're going over your edges, even on the outside between the background and your figure. You're going over the top of those lines. Okay, you don't want to butt up edges next to each other. It'll come out really looking kind of strange and hard, and you'll probably not you can't probably figure out what's going on here, because it took me a long time to figure it out till I understood that I'm going to go over my edges. Okay, and going over it with white there helps. I think it helps it out. As I said before, I'm repeating the process again, and you repeat it 3-4 times, and you'll know when you think that you've got the look that you want. Okay, so I'm not saying that 3 and you stop, right? You can't do 4, you're in big trouble. Just do as many as it needs to have, because this paper will hold a lot of pigment. I've never had it to the point where I've saturated it. So, and you could feel the smoothness. It'll start feeling like it'll be more like a clay feeling, like versus a sandy feeling, and that you're getting saturated nicely when you get that feel on your fingers. Like I said earlier, when you're blending with your fingers, you can get a lot more sensitive areas. Okay, this is the finished piece. Okay, I think it does everything I wanted it to do. It the focal point, as you can see, is up around the head there. I don't so I left all the lights and darks up there and not so much in other parts of the body. It creates movement, and I think that she actually moves, and she has a sense of taking up space. Okay, so once again, if you like this video, I'd appreciate if you can hit the like button and the subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video.